Welcome back in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365. It's July 1st. Boy, the offseason, the summer is moving right along very quick, just 22 days away from the Eagles reporting to training camp, 23 days away from them being out on the field for the first time. So we are going to have a great month on Birds 365, a lot to talk about. Getting through the dog days of the summer. So that's what we were doing. We just had Jeff Kerr, so thanks to him for joining the show. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We're already back up to 72 likes. So good work in the break, everybody. Almost 20 likes in just a 3-minute break. So we appreciate that. Let's get up to 100 before the show is out. Thank you guys for doing that. Here is our stat projection on offense. Johnny Mack, I'll start with you. Let's go Jalen Hurts. What are you expecting from Jalen Hurts this year?
Oh, boy. Boy, I hate stat projections.
I know you do, but we're doing it, and I want you to give us some insight as to what looks good, what is acceptable for a $51 million quarterback with this offense around him.
Well, all of this assumes health, of course. And if you're playing 17 games last year, I don't know, I should pull it up, but I'm guessing he had 38 touchdowns last year, I believe. Total. I don't care if they come through the air or rushing touchdowns. If he gets, we talked about it before with, and evidently you mentioned Rue brought it up. I've been talking about it for a while. I don't think there was much difference in this offense other than the turnovers. So if they get the turnovers down, I think it's going to be similar, and I think it's going to be a top 5 offense. I would like to see him get his completion percentage up closer to 70. So 65 he was at last year, maybe 67, somewhere in that range, near 4,000 yards. And like I said, the touchdowns, if you get near 40 combined, I think that's what you want. And that could be 25-15. That could be 23-17. That could be 30-10. I don't care how you get in, as long as you get in. So I would say the key numbers to me are completion percentage and touchdowns. And if you can get closer to 70, he was real close to 40 last year, so if he can get to 40 this year, I think that would be sort of optimum for Jalen Hurts.
Does it concern you at all that he had only 23 passing touchdowns? I know it's the modern NFL, so people make of that something. It doesn't for me because the overall stats are good and he's getting the job done and scoring points. But does that concern you at all in the modern NFL, the modern passing game that we live in? Hurts is only putting up 23 passing touchdowns. Any concern there?
Nope, not at all. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks can't put the ball in the end zone running it, so they have to put it in throwing it. And that can create issues. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. A lot of teams can't go 3rd and 1 and just stick it in the end zone. They gotta throw it.
Yeah.
As long as he gets in the end zone, throwing it, and he's responsible for that, or running it in, and he's close to 40 touchdowns. I mean, that to me is the only thing that matters, not the split. But I know people want more passing touchdowns. But then I guarantee the people that do would complain and say, "Oh, he's not getting it in there running the football," because they're morons. He could throw for 30 touchdowns, and maybe it scales back to 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns, and I guarantee, why can't he get it in running the ball?
Yeah.
You get it in effectively.
Exactly. I'm with you on that. And I don't, I'm with you. Just get the job done. I don't care whether it's through the air or on the ground, whatever. Just get the damn job done, stay healthy, and make this team a contender late in the playoffs. For my projections for Jalen Hurts, I don't care if he breaks 4,000 yards because I just care about, like I said, the situational football. But I do think this is the year he breaks 4,000 yards passing. I think Kellen Moore brings out the best of Jalen Hurts in the passing game. That would be my projection. I think he has around 25 passing touchdowns and adds another 15 on the ground. Maybe he gets to that 40 touchdown mark, which really is a tremendous number. And then hopefully the interceptions go down. I'm going to project right around 10 turnovers for Jalen Hurts this year. A little bit of a big pullback, closer to the 22 numbers. So that would be my projection for Jalen Hurts. I'm confident about Kellen Moore, John. I really am. I know I haven't seen it yet, and a lot of people have questions on the way it's going to work. I think he's a great offensive mind, and I think he is going to bridge the good and eliminate some of the bad of this offense and really bring out the best of Jalen Hurts. Maybe I have lofty expectations. Maybe my confidence is unfounded and shouldn't be, but that's how I feel. I mean, I really think Kellen Moore is going to do a good job with Jalen Hurts and pull out the most of them. So I'm expecting big things from him this year.
Yeah, I'm in the wait and see mode, and it's more got to do. I know Kellen knows how to call plays, and I know he knows how to play the quarterback position. He played it at a high level in college. He was back up in the NFL for 6-7 years. I'm not worried about building game plans. I'm worried about the connection between the quarterback and the offensive coordinator, because if the quarterback isn't buying in, that's when you have some problems. And
Right.
that in many ways is may not even have anything to do with Kellen Moore. It just might be sick of, and Jalen has hinted at this. He's a little bit tired of the turnover, the constant turnover. And maybe he heard Tom Brady talk about continuity. Who knows? And what that means for an offense. Doesn't mean you're not going to have hiccups on particular weeks or particular years even. But I always talk about continuity in this league because I believe in it. And I believe the teams with continuity, it shows time and time again, are better equipped long term. Maybe, and I don't know this obviously, but maybe he's getting tired of it. And if he doesn't buy in and says, he's throwing up his hands and saying, I don't want to go through this again and again and again and again, and that connection isn't there, I think that's the intangible that we can't know until we see it. We can't know it until we know it, until we see it.
Yep, I agree. Do you think that's a two-way street in terms of Kellen buying into Jalen, if that makes sense? Like Bill, seeing
Yeah,
who he
I
has,
have more
seeing what worked
confidence.
for him in the last couple of years, and buying into it, playing into it, not being. That was one of my favorite things that Vic Fangio said in the open, right? Like, I need good players. Is Kellen Moore going to buy into the quarterback that he has and the system that he excels in?
Yeah, I have more confidence in that happening than just because I think Kellen's been around long enough to understand that, and he's played the position. So he knows not everybody plays it the same way. So I think he's smart enough to understand that, and he'll build around the strengths of Jalen Hurts. And if he's not, he'll be gone pretty quickly. So, you know, and remember, he's not where he was in his career, so he wants to have a big bounce back. He was on the cusp and of being, one of those young, fast rising coaches that was going to be a head coach, and all of a sudden, oh, he's out in Dallas, and people could make the excuses and say he was scapegoated, as was potentially the case, to be honest. But then he goes to the Chargers, and he picked a situation. Maybe it was the only situation, but nonetheless, sort of a coach on the hot seat, and he's out again in 1 year. And now you could argue he's taken over another situation where he might be out in 1 year for a negative way. Now, he might be out in 1 year for a positive way as well, but if it's negative,
It doesn't
that's
look
1
good.
year, 1 year, 1 year.
Yeah, that's three
Out,
screws in
out.
3 years, and you didn't. Yeah, that's not a good look. So it's a good
No.
point. I mean, Kellen's. This is an important year for him to be able to do what he needs to do to make this thing work. So, good point, Johnny Mac. Let's go to AJ Brown. wide receiver one of this team. Last year, he had 17 games played, 106 receptions, 158 targets, 1,456 yards, and 7 touchdowns. What's your projection on what A.J. Brown's going to be able to do this year?
Well, to be honest, I'd like AJ down a little bit. Maybe in the 1,300 range with, maybe get him to double-digit touchdowns to make him happy in that perspective. Only because I want more impact from the third receiver position. Remember, you're talking about a finite amount of yards, and this is why I don't like stats. There's only so much you can do. In other words, AJ's been over 1,400 for 2 years in a row, 1,450, argue, whatever it was. DeVonta's over 1,000. Now people think Saquon's going to be at 600-700, which ain't happening. You got Dallas. They want improvement from Dallas, and Dallas was, I don't know, 600, whatever he was last year. And then you want a third receiver on top of it, getting 600 as well. That ain't happening, people.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think that's are they going to extend the game? So there's only a finite of stuff to come around. Would I like to see them be a little bit more well-rounded? Yes. Take advantage of Dallas a little bit more, take advantage, whether it's Paris Campbell or somebody else. Last year was Quez and Julio and Alameda and just a mismatch of nothingness. So whether it's Paris or somebody else, you'd like to get that third receiver up. To me, the running back is about efficacy more than anything else. They were under 6 yards per reception, I know, with DeAndre Swift, which sucks. And Kenny Gainwell's probably right about 6. They need to get that up to 7. Not like 10 or 11, like 7. And that's what I think you want to get from Saquon Barkley. And with, maybe 45, 50 receptions, something like that. But in AJ specifically, which was the original question, I go off on my tangents, you probably want him down at 1,300, 10 touchdowns, rather than closer to 1,500 and all those targets, just to be a little bit more. And maybe that's where Kellen Moore comes into it. Just get more people involved, making it a little less predictable, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kellen Moore is going to provide that too. I think he's going to force them to spread the ball around a little more. I'm right with you on AJ Brown. That's about what I was thinking. Maybe a slight reduction in yards. I think he'll probably have similar catches, right around 100 catches, somewhere in that range, which is a big number, by the way. And then if you can get him to double-digit touchdowns, use him a little bit more in the red zone. I'm right there with you on AJ Brown. Let's go to DeVonta Smith. Last year, 16 games played, 81 receptions, 1,066 yards, and 7 touchdowns. What's your perspective on DeVonta Smith coming into the year?
Same thing, maybe down a little bit.
Oh, really? I think he goes up a little bit. I think he takes some of those yards away from AJ and cracks the 1,000 at least again, maybe 1,100.
Well, I'm being optimistic here. I want to, I'm assuming Dallas is healthy. Again, everything's assuming with Dallas. If Dallas is healthy, which he hasn't been, but I mean, I don't know how you play this game and saying he's going to miss 3-4 games. So, I'm looking at it as a whole picture. And if Dallas is out there, that increases his numbers over that 3-4 game span. And that means it's probably going to take away from somebody else, at least a little bit. So I'm trying to take everybody down a little bit when it comes, not everybody, the 2 main guys, AJ and DeVonta, and try to elevate the other guys, which are Dallas and whoever the third receiver is, a little bit, not drastically. And I think then you become more well-rounded and maybe more effective. To me, it's about impact and effectiveness more than numbers. So if people are disappointed by 80 catches for 997 yards instead of going over 1,000, I think you're missing the boat.
Yeah, I get it.
Or stop talking about the third receiver and getting the running back involved. And then everybody can go back to their numbers. But I think the assumption that the numbers, and maybe they go up a little bit from the standpoint of the turnovers, which was the problem last year. Then there's the natural increase. And maybe if a better year, you can add 300 total yards, whatever. But it was a pretty good offense. That's the whole point. From a number standpoint, it was a pretty good offense. So, how much better can you get versus being more well-rounded? Because you can keep feeding the football to A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith all you want. You just get the numbers. But
numbers don't tell the full story.
Yeah. So that's kind of my framework on it.
Exactly. 81 likes, everybody. Let's get 19 more likes. We got 13 minutes left to play here on Birds 365. So make sure you guys drop a like if you're watching the show and if you are enjoying the content. Johnny Mac, let's go to Saquon Barkley. You kind of brought him up there. Where are we at with Saquon? I know you're not as high on the player as a lot of Eagles fans are. That's been made very clear here on the show.
That's not that. I said he's a very good player.
You temper expectations. You like the player. You don't think he's going to be the game changer that they've made him out to be. What does that mean, though, for what you think he's going to contribute to the offense this year?
Look, I think he's got to get 1,200 and he's got to get 1,300 yards and, near 5 yards a carry. Number one, that's the most important thing. That is the most important thing. And I use those numbers because that's what Miles had essentially 2 years ago. 1,269, over 5 yards a carry. That's what you need from Saquon Barkley. The passing game, I think, interests people more. And I'm not. Look, that's where I think the addition has been overhyped, whatever word you want to use. There's a misunderstanding. I think it has more to do with what I said about impact and effectiveness. Even if you go back to his rookie season, when he caught 91 passes, and he truly was an explosive player, which, by the way, is 6 years ago, pre-ACL. So even if you go back to then, he averaged 7.9 yards per reception, which is by the way, if he did that here, that is a grand slam. Grand slam. Even if he catches 50 balls. Grand slam. If he does that here. Over his last 3 years, which is more realistic, it's been 6.4, 5.9, 6.8. That's why I say if you get to 7, you're fine. That'll be pretty good. That'll be pretty good. If you're back to where you were with DeAndre, 5 point, but that's bad. That is bad. He's supposed to be better. Now I don't think DeAndre Swift is a bad receiver. I think it's just not the strength of Jalen Hurts' game. But if you combine DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre had 39 receptions, Kenny Gainwell had 30. If you can get them all to Saquon, that's 70. But I still think the Eagles,
man. 70 catches for Saquon, that feels really lofty for me.
Well, and part of the reason is I think the Eagles do like Kenny Gainwell. They want to get him involved as well. So I'm more in the 45, 50 category. And then it becomes, how effective are you? If it's under 6, not good. Over 6, okay. over 7, tremendous. But the expectate, and again, people did they win games? People change their goalposts all the time. But what from the expectations I've heard, it's not going to live up to that. And I constantly get like he's going to be the third receiver. It doesn't matter. Paris Campbell, those people, yeah, it matters. And the third receiver is going to be Dallas Goedert. So I mean, yeah, to those people that say it doesn't matter to have a wide receiver 3 because you have Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's absurd.
I'm right around 1,200 yards rushing with Saquon and maybe 3 to 350 yards passing. But like I said before, I've said this on the show before, I am far more concerned with the situational impact of him than I am of the overall numbers. I think it's easy to get caught up in that, especially when you sign, your first big running back in a while, and you see with the numbers that Miles had here and that DeAndre Swift had here. But I care more about situational impact for Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to provide at least a good bit of that, take some of the pressure off the quarterback. So I have him around 1,200 rushing yards and 350 in the passing game. And then, as Johnny Mack mentioned, the averages matter too. So if we get to over 5 yards of carry, you're in good shape there.
Yeah,
so that's what.
Now, say that again, Xander. Your numbers.
1,200 rushing, around 350 passing.
All right. So Xander's got 1,550. And Xander loves the addition of, and I'm not talking for you, loves the addition of Saquon Barkley. I have Saquon at 1,700 plus total yards, and I hate Saquon Barkley. I want people to hear that. So I don't hate Saquon Barkley. I hate your expectations for it. I'm not talking about you.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
They're unrealistic. Xander's got him down worse than I do. Yet I'm the one who gets the hate mail. No.
Yeah. Well, I like the player, and I just think the situational impact is where he's going to help the most. He's not going to be a focal point of the offense. That's not a bad thing, Eagles fans. We just have so many damn good players that we can't run the whole offense through him, and that's okay. I think he's going to have a great situational impact. And I'm perfectly okay with that. But good point by you, Johnny Mac. Maybe temper some of that hate mail, everybody. Come on, man. Johnny Mac's just giving it to you straight. Johnny Mac, let's go to Dallas Goedert. What's your expectation for him this year? I think it's going to be better because I think Kellen Moore is a guy that likes his tight ends, and he's going to have Jalen Hurts going to the middle of the field a little bit more. What do you think about Dallas Goedert coming into this year?
Well, I've always been a big Dallas Goedert guy. I think he's, tremendous player. Where I want Dallas Goedert up is his yards per reception.
Yeah.
It was down, I think, career low last year when he was healthy. Obviously, you want him to play 17 games and into the playoffs.
Played 14 last year, 592 yards and 59 catches last year.
Yeah, so basically 10 yards per catch. A couple years ago, he's up near 15. He was the best tight end in football. I think 2021 when it came to yards per reception. I want to get him back up to that number. To me, like I talked with Jalen, to me, it's about the touchdowns completion percentage. With Dallas, it's about yards per catch. And I want him up, maybe he's not going to be up at 15 anymore. But if I can get him up to 12, 13, that to me is the more important part. And he'll be in what history says, I think. I'm just pulling it up now. So if you go back to 2019 when he sort of took off, and then he got hurt too much, he only played 11 games in 2020. So if you use 2019, 21, 22, and 23, it's been 58, 56, 55, 59 receptions.
Yeah, all right there, huh?
So you know where you're going to be sort of reception-wise. But if you can get him closer to that 2021 season, I think that's where you're sort of optimal with Dallas Goedert.
See, I think so. It sounds like I might have Dallas Goedert this year having a career year because based
Well,
on
if
what
he
you
ever
told
stays
me,
healthy, he'll probably have a career year statistically. He's never played 17 games. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
all right,
it
maybe
doesn't
I don't.
count.
I mean, he had 830 yards in the air in 2021, so that's about what I think for him this year. I think maybe, maybe the reception, maybe the average yards per catch comes up to 12 or 13. I have him around 60 to 70 catches for eight to 900 yards. That's right where I have him at.
Well, yeah, he's missed 2 games, 5 games, 3 games.
Yeah.
So, if he plays all 17, he should go up a little bit. So he should be up in the 60s reception wise. But as you mentioned, that 2021 season, 14.8 yards per
Yeah,
catch.
that's big, man. That's a lot of
Yeah,
yards per catch right there.
yeah, for a tight end.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's the key number with Dallas Goedert
Yeah,
and
key
staying
number
healthy.
there, and then also just as you mentioned, I mean, he misses games, so I really want him to stay healthy. I think his potential is really high for the type of player he is. He almost plays, I don't want to say like a wide receiver, but I mean his athleticism, the way he runs, like he's not
He's
he's
a,
not
he's a
like a
big
traditional
yards after
tight end.
catch guy.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like he gets yards after catch. He is just an athlete. I'd love to see him have a breakout year this year and Jalen Hurts kind of find him. I think the offense flows really well when he's worked into the game. 2 minutes left to play here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, let's close it out with our favorite wide receiver 3. Not going to be much for me, but what do you think?
Well, I didn't even know who it's going to be, and that's
Yeah,
part of the
well,
problem.
that's why I didn't give a name. I just
So,
gave I just gave you
well,
a depth chart number.
last year was 3 different guys. It was, supposed to be Quez, then it was Julio, little Olamide mixed in. Hey, it's got to be one guy. Pick a guy and stick with him. So I'm going to assume it's Paris Campbell. And maybe we get to training camp and he doesn't perform well, it turns into somebody else. But I want a third receiver who's got like 40 catches, 500 plus yards. Can he be that guy? I don't know. I don't think they have a player. Like I'd love to get to 50 and 700, but I don't think they have that type of player. But that's when you start mixing it around. And AJ comes down a little bit. DeVonta might come down a little bit, but you're more effective because you have that third guy. That's where I think you want to get to. I don't think it's here yet. If it is on the roster, it's not going to be for a couple years with guys like Anaya Smith or James Carver's a big Anaya Smith guy. It's not going to happen early. Johnny Wilson's certainly not going to happen early. I don't think that player's on the roster, but that's where I think you want to get to. And yeah, Saquon Barkley's not going to play a lot of slot receiver. That'll be more of a wrinkle, like Hassan Reddick dropping into coverage 5 times a game. That's what that is.
Right, I agree. I'm in a similar boat with you on a lot of these guys. I think that was a good breakdown. For me, it was, I said I think Jalen's going to bust the 4K. I got AJ at 13. I got DeVonta at 12. That's 2,500. I got Dallas Goedert at around 800. That's 3,300. Saquon at 350. That's 3,650. And then I think 350 between Kenny Gainwell and wide receiver 3. And that gets Jalen Hurts over that 4K yards mark. So pretty good breakdown there of, stat projections and stat expectations for this offense. Obviously, a lot of good players. So good problem to have for Kellen Moore. He's got a lot of people to work into the offense. Good players all over the field. So we'll see what they end up doing. Johnny Mac, any final words? Any final thoughts on your projections for this offense?
Only stat that matters is win the game. Yeah,
it's true,
win
man.
the game. Win the game, and then everybody's happy. And then they'll move the goalposts, and it won't matter if the running back is getting yards receiving or the third receiver is involved. Win 29-32, and you can do it any way you want.
It's true. It's team stats matter more than player stats. We should all remember that as fans of the team. So good stuff today, Johnny Mac. I want to thank once again. Wait, we're at 95 likes, guys. Come on, help us get to 100. We need 5 more before we wrap up the show. I know we can do it. 5 more likes to drop that in here. But, man, I got to give a shout-out to Carver. He starts the show 50 memberships. Then he gives another 50 memberships. Then he comes in an hour and a half later and gives another 20 memberships. We got 120 new members at JAKIB Sports today, thanks to James Carver. So James is one of our most loyal listeners, one of our most loyal viewers. He appreciates he shows us support, and we appreciate the hell out of him. So thank you, James. And then also shout out to Prince, who dropped us a $5 super chat. Thank you, Prince, who's another guy who's here as often as well. So thanks, everybody, for being here. Johnny Mac, great show today. Looking forward to it. We will have a shortened week, everybody. I mean, it's July 4th this week, so I hope everybody has an amazing week, amazing holiday. Hope you guys all have great plans with your family or whatever it's for. But we'll probably only have a 3-show week this week, so lock in for all 3 days because we got a lot to talk about. And there we go. We're over 100 likes, so there we go. Good stuff today, Johnny Mac. We'll talk to you tomorrow, all right, brother?
All right, the voice held up, I think. Thanks
voice
for
sounded
listening.
Great, Johnny Mac. The golden pipes were still coming through.
Hopefully it gets better as the week goes on. But, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. 103 likes. That's my team. I appreciate you guys very much for doing that. We will see you guys tomorrow on Birds 365. Thank you very much. See you, everybody.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.